So it's Monday morning, February 9th. If you're just waking up and checking your feed, you might want to sit down for this one because the political map of Thailand, it basically just got set on fire and redrawn from scratch. Look, we've been talking about this election for months. All the polls, all the pundits, myself included, to be honest, were leaning into this narrative of a massive orange wave. We expected the reformists to sweep. But instead, we woke up to a massive, undeniable blue wall. Caretaker Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul and his Bumchitai party haven't just won, they've absolutely dominated yesterday's snap election. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's only been in the top seat for about 5 months. He was supposed to be a placeholder, right? A caretaker? Well, the caretaker just decided he's moving in for good. Yesterday was intense. It was raining in Bangkok, one of those heavy late-season storms, and while the counting was happening, there was this palpable tension in the air. But as the night went on, that tension turned into a shockwave. With nearly 95% of the ballots in, the conservatives haven't just survived the progressive surge, they've crushed it. So what happened? How did a Newton flip the script so fast? How did the youth movement lose its momentum at the finish line? Today, we're going to peel back the layers. We're looking at the raw numbers, the absolute collapse of the Shinawatra dynasty, and the high-stakes horse trading happening right now in Bangkok as a Newton starts making phone calls to build his new government. This is your 10-minute deep dive into the 2026 Thailand election results. Let's get into it. All right, let's look at the board because the numbers tell a story that the Twitter hashtags didn't see coming. The Election Commission's unofficial count has Bumchitai, the Blue Party, leading with 194 seats in the 500-member House. Let that sink in for a second. 194. To give you some perspective, that is almost double what their closest rival got. In a country where the political scene is usually fractured into a dozen tiny pieces, one party holding nearly 200 seats it's a powerhouse move. It's a mandate. Now, let's look at the Orange Camp, the People's Party. These are the successors to Move Forward, the group that won big in 2023 but got blocked by the courts. Everyone thought they'd come back for revenge, but they're sitting at about 116 seats. Still a strong showing, sure. They've basically taken over Bangkok, sweeping all 33 constituencies in the capital. But nationwide, they hit a ceiling. It turns out winning the hearts of university students in the city doesn't always translate to the rice farmers in the north. And then we have the biggest shock of the night, Payutai, the party of the Shinawatra family, the party that has basically defined Thai politics for 20 years. They came in third with just 76 seats. It's devastating for them. It's their worst showing in history. So why did the polls get it so wrong? Well, there's this thing analysts are calling the nationalism surge. See, while we were all focused on social media trends, there's been some real-world friction lately, specifically a border dispute with Cambodia that got pretty heated. And Newton, being the shrewd politician he is, leaned hard into that. He positioned himself as the security-first guy. He authorized the military to take a stand, he talked about sovereignty, and he basically told the voters, look, the progressives want to change the world, but I want to keep your house safe. And in an uncertain world, stability sells. The youth wanted a revolution, but the silent majority clearly wanted a shield. Now, let's talk about the winner's circle, the Newton secret sauce. If you don't know his background, he's the heir to a massive construction fortune, an amateur jet pilot, and the guy who famously championed the legalization of cannabis in Thailand a few years ago. He's a character. Last night, he stepped out of his headquarters, still a bit wet from the rain, grinning ear to ear. He told the press, "Our victory is a victory for all Thais." Typical politician talk, right? But he's earned the right to say it. Here's the thing. Newton didn't win by having the biggest ideas. He won by building what people are calling the blue wall. While the People's Party was spending money on TikTok ads, Bumchitai was spending time on the ground. They went into the provinces, the northeast, the south, and they locked down the local political dynasties. In Thailand, local influence is king. You win over the village headman, you win the village. It's old school politics, and it worked like a charm. Newton successfully branded his party as the right, deeply patriotic, royalist, and focused on maintaining the status quo. And here's the kicker, something that might have flown under your radar. There was a national referendum held at the same time as the election. Around 60% of voters said yes to rewriting the 2017 Constitution. Now, the progressives wanted this so they could make the country more democratic. But, irony of ironies, because Newton won the most seats, he gets to lead that reform. He's essentially positioned himself as the guy who will change the system, but in a way that keeps the traditional powers happy. He's the bridge between the old guard and the new world, and that is a very powerful place to be. Okay, let's pivot for a second and talk about the other side of the room. Because man, the vibe at the People's Party and Payutthai headquarters last night, it was like a wake. Natepapong Riongpanyawut, the leader of the People's Party, has already effectively conceded. He said they're ready to serve in the opposition. And you have to feel for them in a way. This is the third time a version of their party has tried to take power, and even though they're incredibly popular in the cities, they just can't seem to break through the establishment's defenses. It's a massive what if for the reformist movement. Are they just too radical for the average Thai voter, or is the system just too well defended? But the real story here is the collapse of the red brand, Payutthai. For 20 years, if you wanted populist economic policies, you voted for a Shinawatra-backed party. But with Thaksin Shinawatra currently in jail and his daughter, Payaton, being ousted from the PM role back in August, the magic is gone. Voters who used to rely on them for big money promises seem to have looked at a Newton and said, hey, he's doing the same thing, but he's actually in power, and he's not fighting with the military. Boomchithai basically ate Payuttai's lunch. They took the populism, added a dash of nationalism, and stole the base. It feels like the end of an era for the Shinawatras, and that's something I never thought I'd say. So, what's the bottom line? Thailand has chosen a path of pragmatic conservatism. They looked at the radical change offered by the youth and said, not yet. Instead, they're putting their trust in a Newton to navigate the economy and keep the borders secure. Will it bring the stability everyone's looking for, or is this just a temporary lid on a boiling pot? We'll find out over the next few months as this new government takes shape. But hey, I want to hear from you. Do you think a Newton can actually unite a country that's so clearly divided between the city and the provinces? Or is the Orange movement just catching its breath for next time? Drop a comment below. I'll be hanging out there today to talk through the latest coalition updates as they trickle in. If you liked this breakdown, do me a favor, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And subscribe if you want to keep up with what's happening in Asia and beyond.